Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Profit Minds podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Stephen Kirch, creator of the Profit Minds Growth System, a unique blend of profit growth, productivity acceleration, and building robust business process for scale. In every episode, I interview entrepreneurs and small business owners from around the world with a unique story to tell. You can find the show on YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple and Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and more. Hello, everyone. Today, my guest is Marika Messager, a consciousness expert and founder of consciousleadership.org. And today, not surprisingly, we're going to be talking about conscious leadership. Welcome, Marika.
Hi, Stephen. Thank you for having me on your show.
It's wonderful to have you here. So, as you know, the thing that we do first is I want to hear your story. Everybody has this really interesting and unique way they got to where they are, and so I want to hear from you, and I know my listeners do as well.
Sure. So my name is Marika Messager. I'm French, as you can hear. I live in London. I've been living there for 17 years now. And I founded my company, consciousleadership.org, 10 years ago. So it's conscious leadership, mentoring, and transformative organization. And we are here to, we have a vision and a mission that through leveraging the technology of human consciousness and bringing that to conscious organizations, we can support individuals, honor their potential, work with purpose and efficiency, and have a more fulfilling life. But we can also help organizations transform their culture so that they become more innovative with more engaged employees and that they have a positive impact through what they do, how they do it, and why they do it. So it's been 10 years. How did I get to do that? So I started my career in the financial industry. I'm 48, so that's a long time ago. And I was a sell-side analyst, then an equity sales, and at the end, I was head of equities for Europe and Middle East for a French bank. So I was managing 40 people. I started doing that when I was 34, so I was the only woman manager on the floor. And when I was 28, in parallel to that career path, I had some family issues that forced me or invited me to work on myself. And that was a whole other parallel development of myself through a lot of actually different approaches. And I've been very curious and I've explored many things. And as I was working on myself, I was becoming a better manager. I was becoming a better leader. I was becoming a better human being. So I was able to observe that and start to make some bridges between my own development and how I was showing up in the workplace and how I was relating with my colleagues and my teams. And as I was doing more and more work on myself, I really got interested into the technology of human beingness and what it means to be a high functioning, honoring one's potential human being. And I'm very curious by nature, and I love to learn. So I discovered that there was a whole world that I knew nothing about, and I knew that I knew a lot about money, how to make money, eventually how to spend money as well. But I was like, there is something calling me. And so in September 2012, my company was going through a restructuration and we were being bought by, Societe Generale 100%. And my boss came to see me and he said, Marika, you're doing a very good job. I really appreciate you. But, at the end of the year, your job is dead because we can't have a head of equities. That's coming from our side. So he said to me, do you want another job? Do you want to be global head of research, which was a really nice job. And something in me was like, no, it's time. It's an opportunity to actually, explore what I've been wanting to explore for a couple of years, but I didn't dare to jump because I was in a great position. So I said no, and then I gave myself 2 years to study some practices that I had experienced from myself. So I trained as an integral coach. I trained as a yoga teacher, as a mindfulness teacher, as a clinical hypnotherapist, and I also have been initiated in 2 lineages of shamans, one in Brazil, one in Mexico. And through yeah, and through all that journey, what was really strongly coming to me, and I had different initiations and experiences that confirmed that, was that the paradigm of leadership that we had, and the one I had experienced and I had been exposed to and I had been programmed with, was actually not only the most efficient one, but also one that was creating suffering and creating power imbalances. And so I really started to question that, and with all that experience of being a woman, in that high flying, very male dominated world, and being very successful, but, seeing a lot of things, seeing a lot of distortions, and through my own history, also seeing, distorted behaviors, and having the understanding of why they're there and why we tolerate them, and what's the root cause of them. I really researched on a new paradigm of leadership that for me is conscious leadership, that is based on values of integrity and collaboration and co-creation, compassion, care, rather than power, force, manipulation, domination, competition. And this is something I've experienced in my own life, as I was in the financial industry or as an entrepreneur for the last 10 years. When we are able to operate from those higher values, not only business is much smoother and more efficient, more collaborative, but the performance is higher, and everybody benefits from it. So it's worth it.
Yeah. So very, very, very interesting story, and I want to jump in on a couple of things. The first one is, you talked about the technology of human behavior, right? I think that was the phrase you used, right?
Yeah.
And most of us, when we think of technology, we don't think of it associated with people. So I spent 30 years in high tech, right? So and we weren't talking about behavioral technology, right? So
Yeah.
talk to me a little bit about what do you mean there when you talk about the technology?
Yeah. And it's a great question. Technology is a program. It's a code, right? So we can read a program. We can understand, its root and its goal and how it works. And so it's the same with human behaviors. Um, we all have distorted behaviors programmation within ourselves because our system is unhealthy, right? Our system is patriarchal, it's narcissistic. It's a zero-sum game. In other words, you win, I lose. So we're always trying to win over, take over. So it's a system that is unhealthy, and we've all been programmed with it. So we all have within ourselves some unhealthy, unconscious behaviors. And the technology of human behaviors and the technology of consciousness is the ability to bring all those unhealthy behaviors and patterns and emotional wounds to the surface, to the conscious mind, so that we can see ourselves operating in a distorted way. And once we have the awareness, we have a choice. It's a conscious choice. And we can transform, we can decide that we don't want to be someone who manipulates, or we don't want to be someone with double standards, or we don't want to be someone who, I don't know, micromanages others, or and we can start to question those behaviors. And the technological aspect to it is very important, because it means that we are empowered with that technology to change ourselves and to decide that, I want to be that person who behaves that way, that is aligned with the values that I choose to embody.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
go, sorry.
Yeah, that's great. The the whole idea of a zero sum game and the scarcity mentality. There's plenty to go around, and yet very often you're right, we behave as if that's not the case.
Yeah. And we operate from a mindset of lack, an emotion of fear or greed. When I was in finance, I really observed that, because so I was managing sales, and so you have smaller or medium-sized accounts that you can cover with one salesperson, and then you have the bigger accounts where you have to work as a team, right? Because you need to be able to speak to different interlocutors in the client's dimension. And so in my field, it was like a brokerage industry. So it was very much you eat what you kill, and everybody had a clear contract with some percentage. So I knew if I was making 100 revenue, I knew exactly how much I was making, right? Which was making it even harder to make people work together. And so I was really, trying to invite my team, my colleagues, to work together on one account, and I was seeing so much resistance because they had to collaborate and they were not in control. And then I had to say, it's better to have 25% of 100 than 100% of zero. So let's work together. But it was fascinating to see the resistance, and that's, when I talk about technologies, to really be able to have those conversations with individuals and say, why is it that you're resisting that, right? What are
Yeah.
you afraid of? What is it that you're not seeing? What is the cost of that behavior? So that's when you are becoming a leader, because you are really able to lead people towards a higher version of themselves.
Yeah, that's really insightful. The whole thing of, again, we make the whole pie grow for everybody, and then that's helpful. Another thing that you said when you were talking about your story is that you've been, I forget what the word that you use, inducted or whatever, about the
Initiated.
with a couple of shamans, and
Yeah.
so how does spirituality play in in the role of leader?
Yeah. So first, before I answer that, I want to say that the shamanism is very is a high form of universal intelligence, of spiritual intelligence. So shamans, they are masters of the technology of consciousness. And so it's with that understanding that I did those initiations, and really, what I mean, many teachings came out of that, but one of them is that we have four bodies: the physical body, the mental body, the emotional body, and the spiritual body. And that we need to be aware of those four bodies, and how well functioning or not they are, so that we take care of those four bodies, and we elevate those four bodies as we elevate our consciousness. So spiritual intelligence first is the understanding that we have a spiritual body, which is a connection with our soul, which in business translates to, purpose, drive, right? Why am I doing this? What's the vision? What's the mission? Um, and how well can I inspire others to, go on that mission and execute that vision with me? So that's one aspect of spiritual intelligence, which then if we go into so it's that soul identity, right? The more we are connected with our soul, the more we are acting from a place of authenticity and truth and purpose. And then there is a whole other dimension, which is the technology of creation, which is the knowledge, the understanding, the intelligence that we create with our thoughts, with our words, and with our actions. And that we have to be conscious that our thoughts, our words, and our actions are aligned, right? They are all going with the intention to achieve a goal or to heal a relationship, but we need to be conscious of all of that. And also this is spiritual intelligence. And then of course there is the intuition part, right? The more we are spiritually intelligent, the more we are connected with our intuition, and the more we can trust our intuition to make decisions. And in the world we live in, which is VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, we have decisions to make all the time. A business plan is not a 12-month thing anymore. It changes. We have to pivot. We have to be agile. So decisions, decisions, decisions. And, if we are only making decisions from a mental space, we don't have emotional neutrality, and we are not connected with our intuition, we are really not, functioning to the highest of our abilities.
Yeah. No, that's really good. I mean, one of the things that I do with my clients, as we work through the Rockefeller habits, one of the habits, one of the principles is that in order to have a healthy company, you have to have a healthy leadership team.
Yeah.
Right. That team, that each individual needs to be healthy. And you talked about, the physical health, the emotional health, the spiritual health, and the mental health, and they need to be growing and developing all of those capabilities.
Yeah.
So yes, that's very much a part of making sure that you can run a healthy company.
Exactly.
If the leader isn't healthy, how can the organization be healthy?
No, it doesn't happen. And we do some work with organizations, and that's a non-negotiable. If the leader is not doing the work and able to embody, health, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically, it's going to be impossible to have a healthy organization.
Yeah. So how do you help the leader understand how to become conscious? What's the process there?
Yeah.
Do they have to go see a shaman?
No, no. No, so in my work and the way I have approached the technology and how I bring it to the world, I've been very adamant on translating the technology into words that can be received by the corporate world, entrepreneurs. So that's which is part of the success of it, because if you can relate, and if something that you hear is not creating some resistance because it's not your language, then you receive it much better. But so how do we start? With awareness. So we have 3 dimensions we work on, and the first with individuals, it's clarity, presence, and creation. And for leaders, let's say it's self-leadership, thought leadership, and team leadership. So we start with the self-leadership dimension, which is the ability to lead the self. And how do you lead oneself? By knowing yourself, right? To start with. So being aware of how you function, the program that you have been programmed with, right? So whatever you've been, how you've been brought up, and your family constellation, your culture, your religion, how all of these have shaped you in the unique individual that you are, that has some form of program linked to it, right? So the more you can understand, okay, I understand that this triggers me because this is what I've been exposed to when I was a child, and therefore I can manage myself much better when I am triggered. That's a start. So we start to map the consciousness of an individual, really, with their patterns, with their emotional baggage, all of that. And that creates resonance and also creates a roadmap for transformation, because we know what we're working with, both in terms of patterns and both in terms of emotional wounds and defense mechanisms.
Yeah. So is there, do you actually spend time, like, I'll say, reprogramming then the leader to undo some of those unhealthy habits?
Yeah, so I don't like the word reprogramming because
Okay, but you talk
I'm
about
I'm
technology
not,
as
yeah,
programming,
yeah,
so
exactly. So a lot of the work that we do, and that's also the IP that we have developed, is how to understand how to deprogram yourself to start with, right? So I support people deprogram themselves and then consciously choose which program they are
sure.
deciding to keep,
Okay,
right?
so it's not that you're programming them so much as you're helping them to reprogram themselves.
Exactly.
Which and of course that only makes sense because nobody's going to force you to think a new way. You have to come up with that. Can present ideas,
Yeah.
conversations that say, this is a different way to think about it, but it's not going to work to say, as much as we think about things like 1984, or that story of the
Yeah.
people were just programmed, right? We're not we're not talking about that kind of thing.
No.
So
No, but at the same time, conscious leadership is a philosophy. So, you can decide to embrace it or not.
yeah, and so what kind of change have you seen in leaders? What is the primary attribute, if you will, of somebody who is a conscious leader?
Yeah. A common trait is emotional mastery, right? So it's um, people being able to respond to challenges or to opportunities in a different way. People being able to have difficult conversations with presence, being able to listen and shape conversations, right? Because that's also part of the technology. Be very clear with their intention and where they're going, and know how to drive a conversation in a certain way. Being able to have a better discipline, right? So breaking free from some unhealthy habits and starting healthier habits. So there is also a physical transformation in terms of, well-being. And then there is much more understanding of themselves and therefore of their teams and the dynamics of their teams. So also increasing their systemic intelligence and their ability to see what needs to change in the system in order to support individuals. So there is a higher perspective. That's the mental body, and the spiritual intelligence is starting to be more interested in the intuitive and spiritual dimensions, starting to explore some spiritual practices such as yoga or meditation, or integrating them in their routines, and being more in tune with their intuition and with the flow of things, right? Being more able to observe things, and which goes hand in hand with feeling empowered, and not a victim to circumstances, but rather being a vehicle through which circumstances can happen.
Yeah, so you see transformations in all four aspects.
Yeah.
For there's a physical, a mental, an emotional, and a spiritual transformation for the leader, and I presume also for the organization.
Yeah. Yeah, so for the organization, it translates into more engagement of people,
We all know
less
how
drama.
valuable that is, right?
Yeah, I
These
mean it's
days.
it's it's extremely valuable. Less drama, less chaos, a better ability to navigate difficult conversations, um, a sense of fluidity, a sense of more authenticity and connections as well within the organization, because people have different conversations. They are being able to show up more authentically. They also have different conversations with the work. And throughout the culture and the organization, a higher sense of um, thought leadership and vision, and an understanding of why we are going to work, and that we are kind of contributing to something that is beyond ourselves. So there is a sense of belonging, a sense of meaning also. So it has a tremendous effect on collaboration, on performance, on results.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. So if somebody wanted to get started in conscious leadership and wanted to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, so you can go on our website, consciousleadership.org. If you want to reach out to me, there is a form to get in touch, and I'll be very happy to have a conversation. And we have a lot of free resources as well. There is a lot of podcasts. So if you want to dive deeper, we have free meditations, we have a masterclass, a free masterclass. So the loads of things, and also on social media at Marika Messager on LinkedIn and Instagram.
Great. And that concludes our show. Thanks again to my guest, Marika Messager, an expert in conscious leadership and the founder of consciousleadership.org. I hope you learned something about conscious leadership. I know I did. Thanks for listening. You've been listening to the Profit Minds podcast. This is your host, Dr. Stephen Kirch. Please visit www.profitminds.net for other episodes or to contact me. Thank you for your positive feedback, comments, questions, and for sharing this show with others. Thanks for listening. Have a grateful day.